Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I'm designing a layout for Bramble Fox, and I'm going to be using the autumn title from the November Fox box. You will notice my title is on a bit of washi tape here. That's because it's also got white splatters on it. I created a layout using this a couple of days ago, and I stuck it down with glossy accents as I always do. I went to bed, I woke up the next day and I really didn't like the layout. It wasn't me, I didn't love it, it was just bugging me. So I had to try and carefully remove my perspectives off of that layout so that I could use it again. And what I ended up doing is trying to use a metal spatula to get it off because I stuck it with glossy accents and that stuff is strong. I ended up breaking my perspective into 3 pieces. So it happens. It's not at all a reflection on Bramble Fox products. They are brilliant quality. It was just that I really had to go some to get it off of that layout with the glossy accents. And I got a bit annoyed and a bit heavy-handed, and yeah, it ended up in 3 pieces, but it's not a problem. With my glossy accents, I have managed to get it on this layout, and you can't really even tell it was ever broken. So all in all, apart from the wasted effort, it all worked out okay in the end. So enough about that layout. The less said about that one, the better. I really did not like it. It was the colours of papers I'd chosen. I think it looked really drab and bland. So back to the drawing board, and I came up with something completely different. So I've cut some leaves. I've used a cut file from the Silhouette store. I think it was 2 different cut files. You get a pair of leaves on each one. And I've cut them from different papers from Paige Evans' Wonders collection. Now this is the second time I've used this collection to make sort of an autumn layout. And I actually think it works really well. It's got some lovely warm colours in it. So I've used the pattern papers that have got like almost read as a solid. So they are coloured papers but have some sort of kind of tone on tone design on them. So they're not kind of basic plain papers, but the pattern on them is subtle. And I've cut the leaves from those, and I've cut 2 of each in the same colour, and I'm just distressing all of the edges with an edge distresser, and I'm actually going to layer them up, so like the same one on top of each other, if that makes sense. And I'm going to stitch through them with my sewing machine just down the centre so that it sticks them together, but it leaves the leaf edges free so that I can kind of turn them up and distress them a little bit. I'm going to fast forward through this. You don't need to see the top of my sewing machine. So there we go. I wish my sewing really was that quick in real life. I've just stitched down the centre of each of them with white thread, just a straight running stitch. I'm just trimming the ends off. I'm not tying them off or anything. I want the little bits of thread to show at the end just for a bit of texture on the page. And I'm now going to arrange my leaves. Now I'd already had a play with this layout in Silhouette Design Store, so I brought all the cut files I wanted to use into the design studio, and I decided then that I wanted to have a 3x3 photo, so I made myself a square that was 3x3, and I had a play with the cut files on the screen, positioning them where I wanted them so that I could size them exactly how I wanted before cutting them. So I knew once they were cut out, I knew exactly where they were going to go. So it took me a matter of seconds, you saw there, to get them into place because I'd already thought about that when it came to sizing them and cutting them. And I'm now using those same 4 patterned papers, and I'm just cutting 3x3 inch squares from them. I'm just going to have 1 square in each colour, and I'm going to layer these up behind my photo. Again, just like I did with the leaves, I'm going to distress the edges with that distressing tool. This thing's brilliant. If you don't have one of these, you can just as easily use the edge of your scissor blade. Just either use them closed as they are or open it up and use kind of the inside blade edge. The only thing I find with doing that with the scissors is I sometimes tear the paper a bit more than I want to. But if you don't have an edge distressing tool, scissors work just as well. And I love the texture that brings to the page. So now I'm going to add a little bit of white behind my photo just to give it that tiny bit of separation from the background and to help it pop. It just kind of gives it a nice little frame or border around the edge. And then I'm going to layer those squares up. So I think I'm going to add some foam behind my photo. Yeah, this is where I couldn't decide if to do the foam behind my photo or behind the whole thing kind of as a whole when it was together. But I went for my photo. So that's going to have a bit of dimension, and then I'm going to kind of stagger these squares behind it. You'll see what I mean in a second, so that a little bit is showing of each colour, like one in each corner, if that almost makes sense. Just for a bit more interest, to bring those colours in again. I don't want to embellish this layout too heavily. Apologies, my video skipped a bit there. My doorbell went and it was a pizza box, so I paused the video. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I've lost a couple of seconds of footage in between. So apologies, it skipped slightly there. But yeah, as I was saying, I don't want to embellish this layout too heavily. I really want these leaves to sing with my perspective kind of scattered around them. And also the Wonders collection, although I've said it does work great for an autumn layout, a lot of the embellishments and kind of ephemera pieces and stickers and things I didn't really want to use on an autumn layout, if that makes sense. I could have done, but I just really wanted just a simple design today. So I've added those layered squares behind my photo just to bring in a bit more and to kind of bulk the layout out a bit. I'm all for a minimalist look, but sometimes if it looks kind of too sparse, it bugs me. So those coloured squares behind my photo have kind of satisfied my need, if you like, to have a bit more on the page. So I've layered those leaves up. I've kind of distressed the edges of the top one and bent them and folded them a little bit. I've got those stuck in place now with some double-sided tape, and I'm just going to further distress those edges, and I just think this brings so much dimension and texture to the page and makes it look so interesting. I mean, when you find leaves on the ground, they're very rarely flat, are they? They're dried out, they're crumpled, and that's the look I was going for with this page, and I really love how they turned out. So all those leaves are in place now. I can work on getting my title stuck down, my poor perspective, which I've butchered, but I'm going to make it right, I promise. So I'm adding some foam behind parts of it because it's going to sit across my photo, or kind of half across my photo. Sort of that bit would stick to my photo fine, but the rest isn't sitting flush to anything, it's just kind of floating in midair. So I'm adding the foam behind it so that it just gives it kind of more of a contact point with the background, and I can add some glossy accents behind that, and it will stick nicely. And obviously I need to do some magician work trying to stick my three pieces back together, and I'm actually really impressed with how it came out in the end, and you can't really tell that it's broken at all. So yeah, although I butchered it, I was quite impressed with how I fixed it in the end. So coming back in with the glossy accents now, it hasn't put me off using it. I will still always use glossy accents for my perspectives because it is amazing stuff, and they do hold really strong, as I've proved. So I'm just adding the glossy accents behind it, and then I'm adding a tiny bit where the joins are, where I need to kind of slot the pieces back together. And I'm just going to hold it there for a few seconds, but actually it went back together really easily, and I'm really impressed with how well it came out in the end. So now I'm going to bring in a few more perspectives. So this is what I've got left over from my October Fox box. And I really loved the October and Autumn pieces, but I just felt like the shape was a bit wrong for this design. I wanted something a little bit smaller, so I've pulled out the Remember perspective. It's kind of like a deep plum purple kind of colour. Really, really pretty, and again, like a warm autumnal colour, so it works really well with this layout. And I've also got some leaves and acorns. Those are from last autumn's release. I still have a pack of those left, luckily. These were also on my other layout, the layout that shall not be mentioned, that I keep mentioning. So they, again, have white splatters on them already. So that's fine. I'm going to add white splatters to this layout at the end anyway, so that kind of blend those in. But I'm going to add a few of those in place. So I've got, I think, 2 leaves, 2 acorns, and then I've got a couple of gold hearts as well that match the title and one of the leaves and acorns, that lovely kind of shimmery gold colour. And that is I think it was called Hearts limited edition or heart special edition. I think they're still available in the store. You get a few colours in a pack, so I've just pulled out a couple of the gold ones. And as much as I wanted to leave it there and just have that design on the right hand side of my page, the left hand side was bugging me where it was so empty and so white. So I've decided I'm going to cut some strips of the same pattern paper, so the same 4 colours, varying lengths and widths, and I'm going to kind of layer them up on the left hand side over there, and then I'll stitch through those with my sewing machine again. Same white thread just for continuity, because I've got that stitching over on the right with the leaves, so I'm going to get all of these in place and then stitch those down as well. So I skipped through that for you because it did take me quite a while to get the pieces in place, and they're quite small and fiddly, and getting all the edges distressed took a while. So I've skipped through that for you, but they're all now in place. I've distressed the edges with my fingers a bit more, and they've all got stitching down them. And then I'm just going to finish off the page here with a couple of butterflies that I'm fussy cutting from one of the papers from the Wonders collection. I've just picked a couple of the smaller butterflies. So I've got an orange one over on the left there with those paper strips, and then I'm going to put a green one over on the right hand side just above that kind of orange leaf to the right of my photo. And now I'm just finishing the page off with some white splatters. So I've used some white gesso, which I've watered down slightly just to make it a bit easier to splatter it. And then I'm going to splatter that all over the leaves and those strips over on the left hand side there. And that will be me done. So thank you very much for joining me today. I promise you this layout is much better, much nicer than the one that didn't make it. But I'm much happier with this. I'm glad I pulled it all apart and started again. Much happier with the colours of this one. So yeah, sometimes you just have to keep going. If you're not happy with something, go back to the drawing board and try again. I don't always get it right first time, but that's all part of the fun and games, I guess, isn't it? Yeah, so thanks for joining me. I'll leave some links in the description box below for you to the Bramble Fox Facebook group and also to the Foxbox subscription page. The autumn title, like I said, was from the Foxbox, and I think that was the exclusive title for November as well. I nearly said August then, from November, so you get an exclusive in your Foxbox as well, so I'll pop those links in the description box for you. But thanks again for joining me, and I'll leave you with the rest of the close-ups.